Welcome to the
EcoSend
EnvironMental Podcast.
Okay. This is a really special episode of both Environmental with Dandelion and the EcoSend Podcast. We are your co-hosts. I am Ob, the co-founder of Dandelion Branding.
And I am James, co-founder of EcoSend. I am very excited to be here. I know we're doing something very different today. It's quite fun though. We're both very focused and dedicated to sustainability, and we're in the world of communications. So I think it's going to be a fun podcast, lots of stories, and I think we're going to try interviewing each other, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be, I'm really excited to be here. We kind of came up with this idea and it's going to be great. But as you guys all know, the algorithm doesn't always love the topic of sustainability. But we are rebels refusing to censor what is arguably the most important topic on the planet. So if you're into inspiring sustainability stories, help us spread the word by liking, subscribing, and sharing both the EcoSend podcast and the EnvironMental podcast with all the people you know who lean a little eco.
Amazing. You're so much better at doing that than me, so thank you for sharing.
A lot of practice, and I have no shame in being absolutely just the cheesiest person.
No, it's great. I could learn a thing or two. I already am learning a thing or two. Maybe I should have explained better to anyone who normally listens to the EcoSend podcast that you both have podcasts, and this is just a fun way to chat and learn from each other, asking each other questions. I'm actually looking forward to it. Do you want to get stuck in? Do you want to
Yeah, let's
start?
go.
Okay, let's go. Orb, who are we speaking with? Who are you, Orb? Tell us all.
Okay, I'm Ob Wallace. I'm the co-founder of Dandelion Branding. We are a content marketing agency that specializes in sustainability stories, and our mission is really to bring sustainability and ESG into mainstream conversations. They are still bubbles right now. So our focus has always been, since 2019, to raise and elevate the impact of businesses that are doing cool things in the world.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It.
And you say, it's your turn.
We'll get the hang of this by the end of the episode, I reckon.
Yeah, we're going to do it. I think so.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know me, I'm James. I'm co-founder of a company called EcoSend, and we are an email newsletter tool. So you can use us to send your newsletter. Our mission is to make email a force for good in the world. There's about 350 billion emails are sent around the world every single day.
Really?
Yes, a lot. It's quite a lot, isn't it? A lot of them seem to end up in my own inbox, but too many.
I vibe that.
But yeah, we really believe there's a real opportunity for every email to carry a positive message and enact change in the world. We also know that email, like the rest of our digital lives, also has a climate impact as well, a carbon footprint. EcoSend was really started with a mission to kind of change all of that. So
that's incredible. I am fully on board. I'm going to actually transition some clients over to EcoSend as soon as possible. We only met in a couple months ago?
Yeah, I think maybe
at a sustainable marketing conference.
Yeah.
And learned about EcoSend, and I'm really excited about it. I think you have really incredible values that are kind of along the lines of send less, send lighter, and I really appreciate that. That's one of the things that we focus on with our clients too, is please don't send these long crazy emails. Let's do it short and let's keep people interested.
Yeah. There's so much. Happy to chat more about EcoSend if you like, but maybe I would love to hear more about what you're up to and your own journey into the world of sustainability. Why do you do what you do?
Yeah, so I get this question sometimes, and I don't have a spicy answer.
Fine, we're all friends here.
Yeah, I'm sort of just one of those people whose friends' parents started calling me a hippie in middle school. I had super long hair, and I just didn't, I don't know, I just kind of let's talk about the trees. I was just that person. And I think it was just a self-fulfilling prophecy that I always would incorporate earth stewardship into everything I do. So I don't, it's not I didn't have like an aha moment.
I don't think you need an aha moment. I think that sounds wonderful. If anything, you're like deeply, excuse the pun, rooted in the world of nature, but like from an early age, like that's wonderful. I would say that beats anything I would say.
I don't know. What about you? Did you have an aha moment?
Honestly, I didn't think about sustainability very much at all, or the climate even. I've always loved technology, I've always been a bit of a geek. I think, even when I was at school, I was like building websites and tinkering around with computers and stuff. And so I never really thought about the environmental impact of anything at all. I felt very removed from it. And that did change. That change, I would say our aha kind of moment was a couple of years ago, and we were in London as a team and we were getting together. We were chatting about ideas and all about where we could take the business. And it was a really hot day. It was like, I think it was the hottest day on record in London. And everyone was like, oh my goodness, this is not normal. And I think it just so happened that there was basically someone shared an article about climate change. It was very stats. But in this article, it mentioned about like the internet having growing impact on the planet and needing energy, and it referenced email as one of those factors. And like, I think we all looked at each other and were like, is that right? Really? Does that have an influence? And I think from that point onwards, I'd become, once I'd made myself aware that like actually our digital lives are not, as with anything we do, like still have an impact.
Yeah.
I think it really changed my attitude. And I think since then I think once you even dip your toes in the water of the world of sustainability and climate, you sort of, you get sucked in. And I think you start realizing your whole life, like all of these decisions you make, the things you buy, the way you live, like these all have consequences that maybe you don't necessarily think of until you start down that route.
Yeah, I don't know if you get this. Sometimes I'll like walk into a store. I live in the Netherlands, and like, so when I walk into a store, everything is in Dutch.
Right.
And this hit me when I moved here. So when I moved here is when I started Dandelion, because what I do, marketing for sustainability, like didn't exist. So at least not where I live now. And I was like, well, I'm not going to change my career path, so I'll just start a company. And it hit me because I walked into a store and I saw all the products and they are all in Dutch. And then you walk into a store in the UK or in California or anywhere, and it's the same products or the similar products, and all the labels are in English. And something about that kind of makes me feel like I'm drowning. Like it's like this feeling that like every part of your life and every decision you make just has an impact. And when I see all of the like shelves and shelves and shelves of just stuff and junk food and everything, I just feel a little bit like, oh shit, everything has to change.
Yeah.
Everything has to change.
Yeah. I'm curious on that. So what was it, do you think, about seeing the Dutch product? Was it the realization that like every country has this like huge
I think so.
store of products, and like just realizing the scale? Was it that?
Yeah, I think so. I think like coming from the States where like everything is always in English. Just like I had worked in a company before starting Dandelion that was international. So we put labels on all of the ingredients in different languages. So I knew about it. And so I was already sort of primed for that. But then showing up and seeing it, I don't know, something about it it clicked. And, then I started learning about packaging. I think one of EnvironMental's first guests was an environmental packaging person.
Right.
And packaging is so problematic. So I think it's just sort of, and learning about that and kind of everything, sometimes it feels really overwhelming.
Yeah, it certainly, I certainly share that sense. I feel like individually, aside from business, like individually, I felt increasingly very conscious of like, even if something is cheap, that doesn't mean you should buy more of it or buy it.
Especially,
Well, yeah, arguably especially. But then you see sort of everything the world has done to like train most people's brains on buy more stuff and trying to wean yourself off of that mentality and thinking about the consequences of those actions it is overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things in sustainability is that it is largely a mindset shift. And it doesn't happen overnight for anybody.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So what would you say is like the number one thing that people should know about the digital world, the email world?
Yeah, I mean, you've made it slightly easier for me there because you've limited it to my space, which I appreciate because there's
sustainability world.
In the world, there's a lot of things I'd like to know. In the digital world, I think the key thing, and it's easy for me to share this because it's what I went through, which is that our digital lives, even though they feel very clean in that you don't see smoke coming out of your laptop or your phone, like your digital life has a very physical representation and manifestation. And most of our lives using digital devices involve some form of cloud service, cloud computing, software. That's the piece that no one really thinks about day to day. Like when you ask most people on the street, like, how does Gmail work? How does YouTube work? Most people think of maybe the cloud, but the cloud is such a... It's by that very word is very like fluffy and nice.
Yeah.
And it's up there in the sky somewhere. But in reality, it's just giant buildings filled with computers that run all the time. And they all need making and building. They all need powering and they need cooling. And that need for cloud computing, data centers, servers is growing faster than ever thanks to the growing demands of AI. So this whole, our digital lives absolutely, basically, yes, our digital lives have a very physical reality. Yeah, that would be my...
I like the idea that, like, it's in a cloud, but actually that's just over there. It's just a big building over there. This is something that we think about a lot in Dandelion too. With our clients, we want them to create less and create better. But AI, I think we could probably both talk about AI for a long time. AI is a really interesting tool and it's really helpful, but like, I don't actually struggle to know the line of around like what is safe when it comes to AI and like what is too much AI usage and what does that look like? What do you think about AI? Like I'm not trying, I don't want to like dip, I kind of want to like dip into the AI conversation. Otherwise we'll be here for 3 hours just like conspiratorial bullshitting about...
No. I think that there is so much, and we could easily spend the rest of the day talking about it and not even cover a tiny fraction of what we could discuss. But I would say, first of all, like there's actually a really great piece that came out a few weeks ago that maybe we can link in the show notes that the MIT put together, basically trying to understand the climate impact of AI and kind of outlining like how do you even go about calculating this? How do different models and different uses impact energy consumption? Whether it's text, video, photo generation, and all of this. I think that sums a lot of it up far better than I could do justice on the podcast. I think overall, I don't know, I guess the main thing I'd say with AI is that it is this incredible enabler that I think is on one side. And I think in terms of that enablement, like there's actually tremendous potential at a grander scale to impact some of our climate challenges. When you think about scientists and entrepreneurs like using AI to solve some of our biggest challenges, I think AI has phenomenal potential. But then you also have to weigh that against, well, yes, AI also needs enormous amounts of energy. Most of the AI providers right now are just trying to keep up with the demand, and so they're not necessarily as open as anyone would like in terms of how is this thing being powered, like how much energy is being used for using this thing, and where is that energy coming from? And so there's a lot of questions there, and I think one could only assume that it's very energy intensive compared to a lot of other comparable usage of the internet. And due to those demands, there are a lot of sacrifices being made in terms of climate goals by big tech companies. And so, I think that's worth bearing in mind. There are some companies that are developing models that have much more of a strong focus on sustainability. But yeah, I think it's such a rapidly evolving space right now. It's very hard to be certain of anything.
I know. It kind of is a big question mark. And from a business owner standpoint and a content creator standpoint for businesses, we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't rely on AI sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is hard to say. But we could very easily be outcompeted if we aren't using services like AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out how to balance that without going overboard and having it run our company, because we're the experts. So finding that balance is, I think, challenging, and meeting a lot of other sustainable entrepreneurs or content creators, it's a challenge throughout the entire industry.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, in some ways there's elements there that are similar to anyone in building a sustainable product or service offering, in that you're always trying to balance you're trying to balance being very sustainable and doing things right, but also making sure that you have a business that is competitive and people want to do business with you. And we struggle with that a lot with EcoSend, when you're trying to do things with more thought and care and with more of a responsible approach. Sometimes that takes a little bit longer than just build it and don't give a damn about anything else.
Always takes longer when you have values.
Yeah.
Always. Because that's the thing. You're I need to build sustainability or, whatever value you have into the brand that you're building. And the reality for sustainable businesses is that they're held to a higher standard. Yeah. They have to be at least as good or better as their non-sustainable competitors, and their accessibility and user experience has to be better. Yeah. Their communications have to be better because they're held to a higher standard. And it's not really fair, people who put so much time and energy into building their product and putting care into their product, that's what they do. That's what they're doing, is they're building a product that isn't harmful to the environment, or it gives back, or it only works with fair trade and gives good, enough money. So yes, it is more expensive because it doesn't use slave labor. Those types of things are very challenging to do, but then they have this extra expectation put on there. Your website has to be absolutely perfect. Nothing can be a red flag. There can't be any, it has to be totally trustworthy, and all of your communications have to align and be exactly the same, or else somebody is going to point fingers at you. It's tough out there for sustainable brands. It is. I feel like maybe that tees up nicely for me to ask you the question back of what's the number one thing people need to know. I think the most important thing for everyone to know is that most people, I can't say everyone, are worried about sustainability. I just read a report from Springer Nature that says that 89% of people are concerned about climate change and sustainability, and most people are silent. They're just scared in silence. So I think the number one thing you can do and to know is that everyone around you also has this fear, this eco-anxiety somewhere sitting in you. And the best thing we can do to combat that is raise awareness and build inspiration, make sustainability more mainstream, more accessible, and support the brands and the businesses that are doing good in the world. Yeah, it's so interesting that stat, and that most people are in silence about it, because people get very vocal about a lot of other topics. And I think there's still this stigma around being a hippie, being a tree hugger, we started this episode, you asked my journey to sustainability, and I just have never had shame about being called a hippie. But a lot of people do, and a lot of cultures, I know the Dutch culture is fit in to stand out, and I think that's really common and people who feel like their concern over the environment is different than their colleagues or friends or family members feel afraid that they're going to be looked down upon if they start to make choices based on the climate, which is unreal and unfortunate. But I think
when you zoom out, it's crazy, isn't it? Like, how have we, like, we're all just basically ants on a big planet, on a big rock in space.
I think that all the time. Good job. I love that. Yeah, we're all just ants.
And it's like we kind of got a bit of a responsibility here to kind of look after the rock that we call home. You know, for a long time we didn't do too much to damage it. In the last 150 years, 200 years, we've kind of ramped up a bit on what we're doing to maybe not look after it as well as we used to. And now it's considered crazy. Yeah, we've been quite bad. If I was going to rate our approach.
Yeah, and we're embarrassed. Yeah. Like, we're embarrassed we're embarrassed when we want to do something better or different.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's unfortunate to me.
Well, I guess the hope I have is, you know, the optimism I have is that, I don't know, maybe I am talking to more and more people who share this view, but like, it feels like there are more and more people that do care. Even in the world of, you know, in the world of business, I look to movements like the B Corp movement as something that gives me hope, because seeing the B Corp movement grow seemingly is quite a good indication that more people in the world of business care, more consumers care enough to make a buying decision. Like, these are all still, I think, far too small and probably far too niche, but like that. I think the world's a better place with them than without them, would be my take there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
We each have a role in the world of sustainability to sort of make an impact. Do you want to talk a bit more about you?
Yeah, this is my favorite question in EnvironMental Podcast, is to understand and ask about the role that our guests and the businesses play in sustainability. For Dandelion Branding, it's to tell those stories and to share the people and the businesses who are forwarding that transition and who do care. Because you're totally right that it's still too niche, it's still too small, it's not accessible enough. And the way to change that is by talking about it, by educating. And we saw this a lot during COVID, that people trust and listen to the brands that they care about or that they've been reading. And when we can use business as a force to promote things like sustainability and peace and, like, you know, positive growth and regeneration, then we see more people feeling safer sort of come forward and say, yeah, I'm interested in sustainability. And we see more businesses able to say, even if I don't care about the environment, like, it's good business because people care, my clients care, and my customers care. So that's our role.
I love that. And I think there's so much power in a good story that can really, you know, I think it's sometimes easy to underestimate that. Like, sometimes I think the world of business, especially marketing, can get really watered down with numbers and trying to crank numbers up. But when you have a good story to share and tell, if you can tell it well, then I think that can be transformative.
That's how people grow and learn. That's how the human species has always grown and learned from each other generationally. But EcoSend is a vehicle for storytelling. So yeah, I'm curious about your role in sustainability and how it's going for you guys.
No, it's I appreciate you asking that. And I think our role has honestly evolved. I think when we got started, it was very much a sort of almost like a reaction, a knee-jerk reaction to be like emails have a carbon footprint and need energy, and like our digital lives need energy. Let's just try and build an email tool that tries to reduce that as much as possible. Let's think about all the ways we can make an email as small as possible. Let's think about all the ways you can send your newsletter out and reduce that carbon footprint and and think about that as a very kind of almost like a technical, like an efficiency level. But the more we pursued that, the more we started working with people that are, at least at the time, like were just really teaching us so much about sustainability and the climate and the planet. And the more we went down that path, the more I think we realized that not just email has a carbon footprint, but every email is that opportunity to send a message. And I think that to me now is, if anything, the more exciting aspect, that our customers are marketers, are people that want to tell a good story, that responsible for how a business communicates. They're using us to talk to millions of people. In the way we develop EcoSend, we can help those people send the best message possible and communicate more effectively at a really big scale. And so, by impacting maybe thousands of people ourselves, we can ultimately influence millions of people, which I find incredibly, it's a big responsibility, but I think it's an incredible opportunity. And you can do that by, you can choose to influence millions of people in lots of different ways. And I think there's a lot of tech companies and organizations that are trying to influence people in maybe not the best ways for society and the planet. So I'd like to think that we can make a little dent and do things, tip the scales the other way a little bit.
I love that. We're 100% on the same page. Sometimes it does feel like a lot of responsibility, and it feels really humbling is the word that comes to mind. We use email and we use social media and we use websites, right? And we use these vehicles to share these stories, but in general, we are all the vehicle for sharing a story, and it's important to get it right. And because sustainable brands are held to such high standards, it can feel really scary sometimes, because one wrong thing and that brand can be canceled, or they could have fingers pointed at them, or make enemies in the industry. There's a lot of infighting in the sustainability world, unfortunately. I'm sure you see it too, and that's frustrating. And luckily, knock on wood and fingers crossed, we haven't ever had a huge issue like that. But yeah, it's humbling. It can be a little scary.
Yeah, it really can. I think it was only after being on this journey for a bit that someone told me about the phrase greenhushing, where you're just so afraid to say anything that you don't say anything at all. And I think increasingly that feels like more of I don't know, at least it just seems like a growing issue.
100%. I think it's more insidious than greenwashing, because we are openly vigilantes against greenhushing, and you can join our club too, because people use you to tell their story, which means that they're not greenhushed. But if people who are doing the actual work don't stand up and tell their story, people who are lying about doing the work get to control the narrative, and that's not okay. I think personally that greenwashing is such a big issue because greenhushing is such a big issue. If we had people actually standing up and not infighting with each other and being scared over being called out over saying the wrong word or something, then everybody could get together and use collaborations and use compromise and make actual change in the world to go after the people who are destroying it by lying. It's a pretty strong feelings about greenwashing.
I can feel the passion. It's very inspiring.
It's really important. It's we have a podcast, right, to talk about these types of stories and to share this so that the people we talk to don't get piled on or pushed under the rug, so that their stories are told. And that's what we're doing here, really, is fighting that hush.
Yeah. In terms of our third topic.
Oh yeah, you start here. I actually want to hear you talk about what you think the biggest misconception is in our communications industry, our digital world.
Yeah, happy to. I think I've heard this one quite a bit, especially from people that are already doing quite a bit on the sustainability front, in fact. And I think your point on sort of infighting and things in the industry probably resonates a little bit here, in that every now and again we'll have a conversation with someone who's maybe doing quite a lot already in their business to think about their environmental impact. And when the topic of digital comes up, sometimes the feeling is like, well, it's not that much impact compared to everything else. And so, well, maybe we don't need to change and we don't need to do anything now. It's just not a priority. And I can understand within a business, you always are juggling priorities and thinking about how to best use your time. I think the digital side of things, from what we've seen, small changes there can actually they can lead to really profound impact. And I think that can be multiplied out in big ways. And I think this sort of effort one needs to make on digital is often dramatically less than comparative things in many physical businesses. Like, changing, thinking about whether you have a video or a photo on your homepage, or thinking about how you could improve your email template. Like, these things are, in the scheme of like, versus changing from air freight to shipping or something like, or I don't know, thinking about how you change your physical product. Like, these are very, very easy changes for most organizations to make. And sometimes the impact of those isn't necessarily best to be measured just in CO2 saved. It can be the implication, the signaling, the communication aspect of that. As a company, you go to all that effort with your product, but then can you communicate that better to more people? I think there's just so many opportunities there. And I also think it's also a bit of a mixed message as a team. Like, we want to do the right thing for the planet, but not too much of the right thing. Like, you want to, if you care, like, do you not care about this top to bottom? And I think when you get everyone in the organization caring, even about the small things, then it doesn't become like a debate, like, oh, we care about sustainability on this aspect, but not on this aspect. And, it's just like, if it's baked in, then I think that is just a better way of working. And then on top of that, I think just all of the aspects of, like, at least from a digital perspective, pretty hard to say that approaching things with a sustainable mindset does anything other than improve the experience for your users. Like, sites load faster, you're probably going to appear higher up in Google, accessibility standards improve usually, like, you'll probably focus more on your content and what really needs to be there, which can lead to conversion improvements, like all of those things. So those would be...
It becomes a lot about data, right? It comes a lot about, like, what works, what doesn't work. If it doesn't work, we're not doing it, like, period. If we're not doing it, then we're doing less. I have a question for you. If we're going to make this thinking more common, which I think, like, is your goal and mine, that we can agree on, especially in the world of business, because we're not just talking about, like, one email to another Gmail account. That's something that, like, we have to remember. People who are listening also have to remember that we are talking about, like, automations, businesses, thousands of emails that are heavy and just sitting in inboxes forever now.
Yeah, I also think, like, there's sort of the energy usage, but then there's also something I remember thinking about early on in the days of EcoSend, and we perhaps haven't talked about it for a while, but there's this weird thing with email for marketers where email's free. Like, email's considered free. Maybe you pay for your tool, but you're not, like, deliberately paying for every single email you send. And I think that has a consequence in terms of how people send so much email. And I think when you think about the cost of an email, maybe financially it is easy to round it down to zero, but you also think about, like, yes, that energy piece, but also the interruption and disturbance to someone's day. Is it helpful? Is it, and I think factoring in that cost is, like, someone's time to consume that thing. Is it the best it can possibly be? Does that one need to be sent? Like, I think about that quite a lot. Like, and if you were making the same decision with, like, should we run this Google ad? Should we pay for this radio commercial? I don't know. You'd probably have a different calculation on it.
I'm laughing because as a marketer, like, on the other side, I actively want to disrupt someone's day. I don't want to be part of, like, the morning email purge.
Yeah.
So one of the things we do is we definitely think about like, what is the goal of this email and what do we want people to do and can we keep it small and, but we also think about like, what's the off peak that's gonna interrupt someone's day so that they read this, or it's gonna show up in their inbox right before lunchtime so that like they read it over lunchtime and it is, or totally just, or at 3:00 when they're having their dip and they're easily distracted. Like those are the kinds of things I am definitely like prioritizing.
We've got a job to do.
Yeah, it works.
I know we have been speaking for a while, but I want to make sure you have time for you. What's the biggest misconception on your side?
Thank you. Yeah, this is a longer episode.
Yeah.
Either of our normal podcast episodes. I like it though. I think it's nice.
Agreed.
I think the biggest misconception out there is that people, like humans, are both like to blame and that they have to change their behavior in order for businesses to change their behavior. So in a lot of places, people actually don't know that there are alternatives available. They go to the mall, they make a purchasing decision. They don't actually know all of the repercussions of supporting the brands that they do.
Yeah.
But or they don't have access to sustainability measures. Like, I'm from a place that still to this day doesn't have a recycling center. It's actually hard to recycle. And then we blame people, everyday consumers, for not making the change because they're not demanding it, so businesses won't supply that. It's like somehow in ESG, in sustainability world, we've added like altruism to business. We're like, oh, the business or their customers actually have to like give a shit in order for them to make a change. You and I both work a lot with sustainability focused brands, so we know they're out there making the difference and nobody has to force them. And in a lot of ways, it has nothing to do with whether or not they care about the world. It's just good business. For those businesses who don't want to make a change, like, they didn't care about unions or giving the 40-hour work week or equal pay for equal work or any of that. They were forced to make those changes by policy and labor laws and union reps showing up over and over and over again. And somehow that isn't what we're doing with ESG. We're not demanding in that way in the sustainability world. And I think we can. And I think we should. And I think businesses should not wait for their consumers and their customers to demand that change to make the change, because they don't have to. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think the more I've learned about the whole world of sustainability, the more that totally resonates. Even there you mentioned recycling and how much that is almost like an aspect of like trying to address the fact that so many companies produce products that need to be thrown away. And like how can I think there's a lot on all sides, isn't there? And I think so much of that is about the communication and education piece to make smarter decisions, but ultimately more companies giving a damn would be
talk about it, make it accessible. It's low-hanging fruit. Even like I've talked about this before on the podcast, where like how simple, it's not, I don't want to say that simple because it is expensive, especially for a smaller brand, but for big businesses, how easy is it and how low-hanging fruit is it to just change your packaging to be something that is actually recyclable? So many things are not recyclable or do not fit with the infrastructure, and recycling is not even close to the perfect solution. But the infrastructure that we have, that's what's accessible to most people. So this is what's accessible to people, but we have big businesses in the world and lots of businesses in the world that just do something totally different. And how simple would it be for them to just say, you know what? I'm going to make my packaging recyclable, or I'm going to be a value chain in the recycling industry. So not only are my packaging recyclable, but also I'm using recycled materials. Like it's not rocket science. It is just commonplace and simple now. Stuff you could just can just literally just do that.
It would be nice to see more of that happening, yeah. Do we want to talk about the future?
I almost never want to talk about the future. It seems pretty bleak to me. I try to stay positive, but I struggle with it. But I'd love to hear your future.
I mean, it'd be nice to finish on a high note, wouldn't it? No, I think there is a lot of stuff in the world that needs to change, of course, but I do have hope, and I think the world of technology is changing at just this incredible pace, and I think that poses huge risks, but there are chances and there are opportunities there for technology to have some immensely positive change. I think a lot of challenges at the moment are that we are almost like slaves to the machine, we spend a lot of time on our phones, we spend a lot of time indoors at computers. I think there's opportunities where AI and related developments from that could mean that technology for humans goes into the background a little bit, and maybe can be more of an enabler. And I think it could transform how we approach nature and how we spend time in nature. I think there are so many second, third, fourth level consequences of what might happen. It's so hard to predict, but there are some wonderfully optimistic and hopeful and positive potential ramifications of the way technology is changing. And we're in a time where that could be influenced by anyone listening to this or
I really love that. I kind of feel like the AI kind of going into the background also. I kind of wonder if it allows us to sort of, when I imagine it in the cloud, which I know is just, as we've already discussed, big buildings over there, but like if I'm imagining it up here in the cloud, then we're all sort of on the planet and going back to in-person local events and word of mouth and really communicating together face to face while all of this other stuff is happening around.
Potentially, yeah. I tend to find it easier to sleep at night being optimistic.
Okay, I like that. I really like that. Wonderful. Oh my gosh, I feel like we agree on so many things and we can talk for a really long time. I want to leave it on a high note, and I want you to say like where people can find you, where can they connect with you?
Very, very simple on my side. Just look up EcoSend. You're at ecosend.io. If you want to check us out, that's the place to go. If you want to connect as well, I'm on LinkedIn, James Gill. The link will be in the notes. But EcoSend. Go check us out. It'd be wonderful to get your feedback. But if you want to send a newsletter, I'd love to welcome you on board. How about you?
Yeah, I'm really easy to find. Aubrey Wallace on LinkedIn, and you can go to dandelionbranding.com.
Is that a show?
That's our show.
That's a show. What a pleasure it's been speaking with you today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining EnvironMental Podcast, and I'm really glad I got to be on EcoSend.
Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you to anyone who's listening or watching to either of our shows.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around, and see you next time.
See you next time. Bye. Bye.